Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's just jump right in. We're going straight to a really radical question today, one that probably dictates way more of your life than you even realize. So here it is. What if the loudest, maybe the cruelest judge in your entire life isn't your boss, isn't your partner, isn't, society's expectations?
What if it's you?
Exactly. What if the prison warden is actually living inside your own head? That's what we're diving into. This pretty terrifying idea that freedom, it might just be an illusion when you're carrying the jailer around with you 24/7.
And that feeling, that sort of immediate gut feeling of self-policing,
Yeah.
well, that's maybe the most terrifying and constant part of being human right now.
Yeah.
What's really wild is that this deep self-criticism, this kind of internal voice of morality, of don't do that,
Yeah.
it's the very thing holding civilization together.
Right.
But it's also the thing that just relentlessly crushes the individual,
Yeah.
pushes us into obedience. It's this control mechanism that sounds exactly like your own voice.
Okay, let's really get into that. Section 1, defining this internal tyranny.
Yeah.
So the starting point here, the really challenging idea, is that you're not just the prisoner in this scenario, you are the warden. You're the one enforcing the rules. And recognizing that, it changes everything, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, just think about all those small, maybe unnecessary acts of self-discipline you put yourself through every week.
Like setting the alarm for 5 a.m.
Exactly. 5 a.m., when there's no deadline, nobody's demanding it.
Mm-hmm.
But you do it because deep down, you're convinced you should.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, that inner voice immediately labels you lazy, weak, unworthy, something like that.
And the proof is right there in the feeling, isn't it? If I do sleep in, if I miss that completely self-imposed standard, the guilt is like physical. It feels like a genuine moral failing.
Yes.
Not just, oh, I'll start my day later.
Right. It's not a logistical choice. It's a character flaw in that moment. You track your productivity, your food, your steps, your meditation streak, like a prisoner scratching marks on the wall.
Obsessively.
Utterly obsessive. And you feel real biting guilt for skipping the gym or eating dessert or just scrolling on your phone instead of, optimizing yourself somehow.
You're failing the standard that nobody voted on and nobody wrote down. Nobody else even knows or cares, usually.
Precisely. The authority is completely internal, and yet it has this devastating power over your emotional state.
So we need to be really clear here. We often confuse this relentless pressure with, healthy discipline or ambition, or maybe just having a conscience.
And that distinction is absolutely critical. This isn't discipline, not really. Discipline is a tool you use consciously for a goal. This is internalized tyranny.
Tyranny.
Freud called this structure the Uber-Ich, the superego, and it's the voice of absolute rigid authority, morality, prohibition. It's not a gentle guide, it's more like the internal executioner, always ready with judgment.
Okay, an executioner needs laws. Where does it get them? We're not born with this stuff, right? A detailed manual for perfect hydration and career progression isn't in our DNA.
Definitely not innate. No, it's carved into us. Think of it like a living document that's constantly being updated by this committee of ghosts.
Ghosts.
Yeah, ghosts. It starts with the parents, their demands for obedience, then teachers wanting stillness, priests demanding confession. But now that committee includes algorithms whispering you're falling behind.
Oh, yeah.
Influencers selling effortless perfection. The constant pressure cooker of social media performance.
And the idea that the superego is designed to protect civilization, not the individual, that feels profoundly unsettling. If it doesn't care about my happiness, what is its job?
That's the core of the Freudian argument, really. Its existence isn't about your personal well-being, not about you flourishing. It was originally set up to keep the social order going.
Contain the chaos.
Exactly, contain the chaos. It's the internalization of social control, making sure those wild, messy impulses of the id, which we'll get to, don't just tear everything apart. And because it speaks with your voice, you can't run from it. You can't hide.
Which leads right into how punishing modern culture feels, even when it's wrapped in shiny paper like wellness or self-care.
Precisely. Those concepts immediately get turned into regulated performances. Even trying to rest or rebel has to be optimized, tracked, shared.
Right. Did you rest well enough? Did you self-care productively?
It's madness. You feel forced to outsource your sense of self-worth to this internal committee. Haunted not just by maybe a demanding parent from your past, but by the ghost of Instagram's perfect body.
Or LinkedIn's superhuman achiever.
The ghost of the perfect meal prep. It just goes on and on. The superego demands constant monitoring, constant optimization, constant auditing of the self. And the standard is always impossible, which guarantees you're always falling short, always striving.
That whisper of, you could have done more, even when you're completely wiped out, that's the base, isn't it?
That's it.
That feeling of failing just because you didn't hit some imaginary productivity peak on a Saturday.
That is the psychic violence. It's internalized cultural aggression.
Yeah.
And you obey this self-policing, not just because you're scared of, say, getting fired or judged socially.
Yeah.
No, it gets weirder. You obey partly out of this strange, perverse love and admiration for how rigorous it is, how demanding. You actually mistake its cruelty for virtue, its harshness for moral strength. That internalization,
Yeah.
that's the trap.
Okay, so let's trace this back. Section 2. The birth and mechanics of this inner judge. If we want to understand the tyrant, we need to get Freud's basic idea. Society is built on repression. What are we actually repressing, and why does society demand it?
We're repressing the raw stuff, the chaotic primal instincts, what Freud called the I'd, to move from just, raw nature into living together in groups. We have to give up, or at least seriously manage, two huge categories of desire.
Which are
Raw sexual urges and pure unfiltered aggression. These drives, he called them Eros, the life drive, and Thanatos, the death drive. They don't just disappear when you join the club of civilization.
Right.
They get pushed down. Or, and this is key, they get redirected, given a detour. Sublimated is the technical term.
Okay, let's slow down on that. The birth mechanism. This is critical. So say I'm a kid. I feel raw anger. I want to hit something, break something. My parent stops me, prohibits it. Where does that aggressive energy go?
That is the crucial moment.
Yeah.
The impulse is stopped externally, don't hit your sister. But the energy doesn't just vanish. Poof, gone. Instead, the child performs this incredibly brutal but efficient psychic trick. They identify with the prohibition. They take the parent's command, the parent's authority inside themselves.
So the child becomes the one saying don't, not just to others, but
to themselves, exactly. The rage hits the wall of external prohibition, can't go out, so it turns 180 degrees, aims inward.
So the whip, the punishing look, the threat of losing love that gets internalized, you start whipping yourself.
Precisely. That aggressive energy isn't destroyed. It gets transformed into self-criticism, self-attack. And that's why the superego is often so vicious, so disproportionate in its judgments. Structurally, it is internalized aggression, redirected cultural force.
But wait, doesn't rage turned inward just, lead to depression or self-harm? Is there a difference between healthy redirection and just beating yourself up?
Well, that's the paradox we have to grapple with. The individual obeys this fierce inner dictator, initially, out of absolute terror, fear of losing the parent's love, which for a child feels like annihilation.
Right, survival.
But later, that fear morphs into something stranger, more perverse, a kind of weird admiration, even love, for the sheer rigor of the force that's crushing them.
We confuse its cruelty with virtue.
Yes. We mistake its demands for moral necessity. We punish ourselves because we've been taught deeply that suffering is somehow the price of being good.
Which means the superego doesn't just say no. Its language is shame, deep moral failure.
Absolutely. If it were just no, the ego, the rational part, could probably negotiate, find a compromise. But the superego weaponizes suffering. It doesn't just say, don't do that. It says, you should suffer and be ashamed if you even think about doing that.
Wow.
It makes you ashamed of desire itself, makes you loathe yourself for feeling anger. It convinces you that anything less than impossible perfection isn't just a slip-up, it's a fundamental moral failing. Culture survives, Freud argued, not because of police and armies primarily.
But because of this internal guilt.
Yes. Guilt is the ultimate self-renewing control mechanism.
So the superego is basically engineered to make us obedient, not happy. And every time we squash a real desire or punish ourselves for failing some impossible internal metric, we're just reinforcing its authority.
We're feeding it.
Yeah.
It thrives on your anxiety, your guilt, your self-loathing. Your self-punishment is literally its fuel. And this constant, permanent installation of a hostile judge inside your own mind, that's what drives neurosis, that internal war, self against self. You're never really alone, are you? Because you're always being watched, judged, and found wanting by the one person who knows everything.
Okay, this moves us directly into the modern world. Section 3. The economic exploitation of the psyche. This feels incredibly relevant. We have to ask that brutal question. Who actually benefits when I feel guilty for resting? Or when I believe I'm lazy unless I work 80 hours a week?
This is the critical modern twist, the weaponization. Capitalism didn't invent the superego that's been around as long as we've needed social order.
Right.
But capitalism provided this magnificent new playground for it. The superego loves perfection, optimization, relentless striving. Capitalism figured out how to monetize exactly those pressures. Morality, which started as social control, gets turned into essentially a personal brand requirement.
It really feels like we've swapped out, I don't know, feeling God for fearing inefficiency. The language changed, but the pressure, the demand for penance, it feels identical.
It's uncanny, isn't it?
Yeah.
We see these new forms of self-flagellation, totally voluntary penance. Be your best self is the new fear God.
Yeah.
Hustle is the new do penance. Always paying the price for the potential sin of not maximizing your output. And tragically, burnout. Burnout is the new martyrdom.
Oh, wow. Explain that.
The system convinces you that your exhaustion, your collapse, is your personal moral failure. You didn't optimize enough. You weren't resilient enough. Not a failure of the insane demands placed upon you.
Okay, I get that shame has moved into the self-care space too, but let's push on this. If I choose to work late, isn't that just my ambition? How does the economy specifically benefit when I feel guilt for not hustling?
Yeah.
Where's the monetization of my inner critic?
The benefit is huge because it privatizes systemic problems. If you burn out, capitalism, through your superego, whispers, you are the weak link. You failed to optimize your sleep, your diet, your focus. The system brilliantly shifts the blame for relentless extraction away from the company, the structure, the economy, onto the individual worker's moral fiber.
It's economic exploitation of the psyche.
Exactly. The second you feel guilty for resting, you have essentially volunteered to be your own unpaid, perpetually vigilant factory foreman.
And it just creeps into everything. I felt that shame for not meditating every single day or not journaling consistently. That's not spiritual growth anymore, is it? That's the superego colonizing spirituality.
Precisely. It takes a genuinely good impulse wanting inner peace and weaponizes it, turns it into another metric you can fail at, another stick to beat yourself with.
So that anxiety about maximizing potential or the fear of falling behind people on LinkedIn?
That's internalized capitalism whispering. You are a resource, a unit of potential profit. Optimize yourself or you will be discarded. The ultimate goal is self-management, so total, so complete that no external boss is even needed anymore.
So when we see those high-profile figures celebrating the 18-hour workday or constantly pushing the rise and grind narrative, they're not just showing off discipline, they're actively weaponizing the superego for everyone else.
They normalize the self-harm. Yeah. They model the cruelty of the inner judge as the only path to success, which makes you feel ethically obligated to follow that same punishing road.
You're told you're free, choose your job, choose your path. But you're actually imprisoned by this endless loop of shoulds and guilt, enforcing laws you never agreed to.
You become your own manager, your own HR, your own disciplinary committee, all rolled into one anxious, guilty, and ultimately exploited self.
Okay, let's dive deeper into the mechanics of this internal war. Section 4, the psychic battlefield and the cost of sublimation.
Right. To really get the severity of this, the constant conflict it creates, we have to go back to Freud's map of the mind. The 3 parts: id, ego, superego.
Quick definitions, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Sure. The ID, raw, instinctual energy. Pleasure, aggression, desire. It wants what it wants now. The pleasure principle.
Got it.
The ego, the negotiator.
Yeah.
The realist, tries to balance the I's crazy demands with what's actually possible in the real world.
Yeah.
Reality principle.
Okay.
And the superego, as we've said, the moral enforcer.
That's right.
Perfectionist. Conscience. Internal censor.
And in modern life, it really feels like the superego has pulled off a coup. Like the ego is just overwhelmed.
It really has. The superego dictates its senses, and the poor ego often just collapses under the pressure. This leads directly to neurosis, to that deep sense of unease and discontent.
And the I, does it just go away when it's suppressed?
Absolutely not. That's crucial. It doesn't vanish. It mutates. It leaks out sideways as symptoms.
Like
chronic anxiety, obsessive thoughts or behaviors, addictions, sudden bursts of rage that seem to come from nowhere, deep, heavy depression. It's like the body starts rebelling physically where the mind is surrendered to the internal judge. What we casually call stress or burnout is often this relentless internal war playing out.
This internal war brings us to those 2 fundamental drives Freud talked about: Eros versus Thanatos, life versus death. How does that conflict play out through the superego?
This is absolutely central. Eros is the life drive. It's the impulse towards connection, pleasure, creation, merging. It's expansive, explosive, messy, alive.
Okay.
Thanatos is the death drive, the impulse towards destruction, repetition, silence, control, order, ultimately self-annihilation, returning to an inorganic state. Civilization, as Freud saw it, is basically the long, slow, grinding victory of Thanatos over Eros.
But why would civilization favor the death drive? That seems backwards.
Because Eros is unpredictable. Wild desire wanting to merge, dissolve boundaries. That's dangerous stuff for social stability. Society needs order, predictability.
So it tames Eros.
It domesticates Eros, yeah.
Yeah.
It schedules desire,
Yeah,
it pathologizes genuine excess, turns real pleasure into a filtered performance, demands conformity. Meanwhile, the superego actively glorifies Thanatos. It rewards absolute control, rigid discipline, the idea that suffering equals virtue.
So the superego is Thanatos' lieutenant.
It's loyal lieutenant, exactly. Punishing not just the forbidden act, but the desire itself, the feeling, the impulse that might lead to chaos or pleasure.
Which brings us to sublimation. We often hear that's the healthy outcome, right? Turn your rage into art, your lust into ambition. But you're saying it's not really liberation?
It's a redirection, yes. A transformation of forbidden desire. But it happens entirely under duress, under the command of the superego. The art, the brilliant piece of work, the cultural achievement, that's often the symptom or the scar of the inner war. Not a happy resolution, it's born in the conflict.
And modern life has just optimized this.
Totally. We don't just repress crudely anymore, we optimize repression. We gamify guilt. Streaks, scores, productivity sprints.
The 7-day meditation challenge, the 90-day hustle challenge.
Exactly. These are just systems for performing obedience, making a game out of following the superego's rules. And the superego is just delighted by our enthusiastic efforts to obey.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
Section 5, guilt, obedience, and the unconscious crime.
Right. The main tool in the superego's toolkit, the absolute glue holding this whole psychic regime together, is guilt. Freud basically said guilt is the biggest problem civilization faces. More powerful than crime, more persistent than war. It's the internal police force when the external cops aren't looking.
When no one else is watching, guilt is always watching.
Always. And the deepest, most paralyzing guilt. It's the guilt for simply desiring, for wanting the wrong thing, for just being human, messy, unacceptable in your raw state. That core shame is the lever the superego pulls constantly.
And here's the really cruel part, the genius of it, maybe. It doesn't just watch your actions.
No, that's the terrifying bit. It polices your thoughts, your fantasies, your wishes, your internal monologues. In the court of the unconscious, Freud said, to wish is to act.
So if I have a fantasy about telling my boss off, or running away, or just indulging myself completely, psychically, I've already committed the crime.
You've rebelled. You've committed the thought crime. The superego punishes that fantasy almost as fiercely as if you'd actually done it.
That explains that huge, illogical anxiety we feel about impulses we'd never act on. The guilt for thoughts no one else could possibly know.
Intention becomes crime. Desire becomes betrayal. That is the ultimate psychic colonization.
And the tragedy here, neurosis, that crushing anxiety, it doesn't just come from big traumas or failures. It often comes
From obedience.
Yeah.
From trying too hard to be good, burying too much real anger, swallowing too much genuine desire, believing you're supposed to control the uncontrollable chaos inside you.
So the paradox is just devastating. The more you try to be obedient, moral, controlled, the more you actually betray your real self, the self that wants and rages and gets hungry and knows it's tired.
Precisely. You volunteer for self-erasure because civilization asks you to. You bury the parts of yourself that culture finds inconvenient or messy, all in pursuit of this impossible ideal of perfection.
That quiet sigh. The person who did everything right, checked all the boxes, met every expectation, and still feels empty, anxious, unworthy.
That's not a personal failure. That is the system working exactly as designed. The superego's job is to ensure you perform self-annihilation, but call it maturity or morality.
Okay, so if the system is built this way, leading us towards this, how do we find a way out? Section 6. Towards a truce. Decolonization, not destruction.
Right. And the final trick, the most sophisticated one, is that the superego convinces you that you chose these chains, that this cell is actually your home.
So rebellion feels like betraying yourself, or your family, your culture.
Exactly, like you're betraying everything good and decent. It's a brilliant psychic sleight of hand. So the path forward, it can't be about destroying the superego completely. Freud knew that it's necessary. Without some internal censor, you don't have language, society, a functioning self.
So the goal isn't destruction.
No, the goal is to decolonize it.
Decolonize, that sounds like. Psychic archaeology, digging through the layers of commands inside your head to figure out where they came from.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. The first crucial step is just seeing the difference between you and the structure inside you that's constantly monitoring you. Asking that critical question over and over. Whose laws are these?
Whose voice is this, really?
Whose morality are you beating yourself up with at 3 a.m.? Is it your boss's standard? Is it the algorithm's ideal? Is it the ghost of your disappointed father? Or is it just maybe, possibly, a standard you actually chose for yourself? And if it's not yours, whose suffering are you performing day in and day out?
Okay, but if it's such a tyrant, why did we build it? Was there a reason beyond just control?
That leads to maybe the most radical reframing we can try. What if the superego isn't just a tyrant? What if, underneath all that harshness, it's fundamentally a terrified child?
A child.
Built not out of malice, but out of pure fear. The unbearable fear of abandonment, fear of chaos, fear of the absolute loneliness of being truly, wildly yourself in a world that might not accept it. That child learned a very simple, brutal rule. To be loved, be perfect. To be safe, be quiet, be good.
So healing isn't about winning a war against it.
No. Healing isn't victory over the inner judge. It's entering into a deliberate, maybe even compassionate dialogue with it.
Dialogue. A truce. A negotiation, not a war. That sounds actually possible. More sustainable.
It's the potential moment of liberation. It means stopping the endless project of trying to fix yourself.
Right.
Because that's usually just another superego hamster wheel.
Right.
The core act of psychic rebellion, of decolonization, might just be hearing that voice, the one whipping you for resting, shaming you for wanting, critiquing your very being, and gently but firmly saying, no.
Just no.
No. I am not yours. I hear you. I even understand why you're here. But I'm not afraid anymore.
That feels profound. Okay, wrapping up. The outro. The unanswered question. So the big takeaway seems to be that freedom doesn't start with changing your behavior necessarily. It starts with dethroning, or at least negotiating with, that inner tyrant. Reclaiming yourself from that committee of ghosts.
Yes. Realizing that the self, underneath all those layers of shoulds and guilt and internalized rage, it's still alive. The possibility lies in acknowledging that life force. You are more than your obedience, way more than your guilt.
So we've laid out how the superego is needed for civilization, but how its current form leads to this widespread, deep discontent. Freud kind of leaves us at the edge here, doesn't he? Observing the problem, offering awareness, but no easy fix. So what's the final, most provocative question we leave the listener with?
The question really is this: who are you? When the superego finally goes quiet, even for a moment, when the guilt lifts, when that crushing weight of should just dissolves, who exists then? You were never actually meant to fit neatly inside the box culture built. You were never meant to apologize for taking up space, for wanting things, for being alive.
For the possibility. That's the key. Maybe the real danger isn't the endless chaos, the wildness we're so afraid of. Maybe the real danger is the superego's endless draining war against it. What if the disorder we're trying so hard to suppress isn't the threat? What if it's part of the truth?
That's the space to explore. That's where real self-discovery might begin.